seriously? No. No. Do we have to talk about him again? Welcome to the December 30th, 2020 eclipse chart video. As a special addition to this, I am including information about how it impacts Donald Trump's chart, and hopefully this will be the last time we ever have to discuss this man. So let's get on with the chart work. Okay, so this month, or this eclipse rather, because it's at the end of the month, this eclipse is going to occur December 30th. Now the eclipse will be activated near the date that Uranus stations direct. So Uranus will station direct on January 14th. So we're going to watch this date specifically as it applies to Trump. Now, we're just going to erase all of that. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is a biwheel. Donald Trump's chart is in the center, and the eclipse chart is located on the outside ring of this chart. One of the first things you're going to see is his almost exact activation of his natal Mercury with the eclipse. You see this? Now, if he is in fact Virgo rising, this eclipse occurring on his chart ruler has a huge portent and impact. With this particular eclipse pattern, however, it is colored by some other things. So here, one of the first things you might notice is this Mars-Mars trine. Now there are people who would say that this particular Mars-Mars trine should give him some additional jet fuel to accomplish his goals, or lend him some level of support and aid and protection and all sorts of good things that we associate with trines. However, I want you to look here. Let me change this. His Venus and his Saturn right here at 23-25 Cancer has been under siege by Pluto and Capricorn for a while now. And as a matter of fact, as soon as Pluto got with a 1 degree orb, or just prior to 23 degrees, so as soon as Pluto got to blah, 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 blah. As soon as Pluto got to 22-ish Capricorn, that's when his house of cards really started to fall. So right now, Pluto has moved from Saturn over to Venus, and now he's really getting hammered. So Venus and Saturn in Cancer, as a rule, tends to have a very difficult time in relationships. So there's always concerns or issues about loyalty and conditional love, right? Love and warmth and appreciation only being given as a matter of conditional things. We've heard of this, where people feel like they have to earn someone's love or earn someone's warmth or kindness, right? The basic human things that come with a well-developed emotional body for a human being, and particularly children. With Venus-Saturn conjunctions, oftentimes the person is made to feel that even the simplest and most basic of human needs have to be met through conditions first, or it will be withheld. Also, too, with Venus-Saturn conjunction in Cancer, there's a huge underlying issue, fear, or theme of abandonment. So this also makes it very difficult for them to really trust people, or to let people in emotionally. Now, the other side of this, of course, is that if it is left to develop in unhealthy or toxic ways, what you get is somebody who's capable of a tremendous amount of sadism, emotional sadism, lots of passive-aggressive behavior, lots of gaslighting, especially with this Mercury Neptune squared. Gaslighting's like a superpower skill, right? And also with Venus-Saturn conjunctions like that, especially in the sign of Cancer, ooh, they're tough. They're tough. So there's just not a whole lot of softness there. And a lot of these issues go back to the relationship with the mother or the early childhood. Don't blame everything on your mom. But certainly with early experiences with the mother or female authority figures, and or the early childhood. Now, we know an awful lot about Trump's dad, and still not enough. There's a whole lot there that's not being told. And I'm sure that Rapscallion was a horrible womanizer and probably introduced Trump to fairly adult themes and really toxic views of women very early on, much too early in life, probably well before he was even an adolescent, because, back in the day, right? Not to mention the fact that Trump's father is just lecherous. Oh my God. Anyway, sorry, I'm going off on a rant here. But with all that said, it's also possible that the mother just shut down emotionally, and that made it very difficult for her to have a relationship with her. So if you've read Mary Trump's book, a lot of this is attributed to the mother's illness, Donald Trump's mother being ill most of his early life. But I suspect some of that illness was also a defense and a way of maintaining some power in a relationship with a husband who basically had very little use for her, except for appearances and keeping the house. As I'm sure if he was not already running prostitution brothels, I'm sure he was a regular patron there. So I can only imagine what it was like living with him as his wife. And God only knows what he brought home with him. Oh my God. How many abortions did Trump's father pay for? That's the question. Okay, anyway, sorry. Blah, blah, blah. All right, so that Mars-Mars trine that we're looking at right here, right? So it looks like, some people say, like, that's a really good aspect. And on first impression, it would seem that way, but it's not really, because, remember, astrology is all about combinations of things. We've got all this going on. And these are not happy things happening here. So with Pluto, transiting Pluto, opposing his natal Venus-Saturn, he's really getting ripped open from the inside out. So I'm not going to make any value judgment calls here about whether he deserves this or not. But I will say, if I were speaking about anybody else, I would say that with this particular aspect, there are a lot of deep, deep betrayals and a lot of old wounds that are being opened up and resurfaced at this time through experiences that a person is having. So this is a fantastic time that's ripe for really digging up old carcasses in our closet of skeletons for psychotherapy. But for people who aren't actively engaging and trying to unearth the source of their issues, this is just a horribly painful, devastating time. Now, as we're speaking again, the eclipse is occurring on what we believe is his natal chart ruler. So this is really blowing open everything in his life in a very deep and personal way. So events that happen at this time, when an eclipse is your chart ruler, events that happen at this time are setting up literally the dominoes in your life moving forward for at least the next 6 months, often for years to come. So this is the ending and the beginning of Donald Trump. So it's the ending of Donald Trump as he knew himself, or believed himself to be, and certainly as we saw him, and the beginning of a whole other Donald Trump that nobody's familiar with. So this could be his demise, because we're not familiar with him as being a dead person. This could be him having a full-scale meltdown and being institutionalized. Because as crazy as he is, there's still a significant portion of the population that believes he's just fine. So having him officially and absolutely firmly committed would be a complete departure from what we know him as. And then also, too, there's the possibility of him going to prison, which, again, is not certainly not how he sees himself, and not someone we have seen him as before now either. So it will be interesting to see how this finishes playing out. Now, with this particular eclipse pattern, I want you to notice, and I want you to circle your calendars around January 14th. And the reason I say that is come January 14th, not only is Uranus stationing direct, and Uranus will rule his sixth house of physical health, it is also stationing around the time that this eclipse is getting activated again. So these dates from like the 13th, write this down here, to the 16th of January, these are hot days for him. So let's look and see what happens. Because remember, while the cosmos runs on time all the time, it's up to us to be able to read the timetables on the schedule, right? So always give yourself like a little bit of latitude here and there, because sometimes what we think the timetable is not actually it. There's other, there are other things here that we miss until it happens. Anyway, so with that said, especially with eclipses, because eclipses are like big full moons and big new moons. So it's more fluid around the edges. It's not as precise, for instance, like a Mars aspect. So, or with the angles, ascendant, midheaven sort of stuff. So with that said, this particular eclipse, as it gets activated, we've got a couple of days, like up to 24 to 72 hours before and after this eclipse to see the ramifications of the eclipse. And think about this for a second, right? So mark your calendar. If you're watching this, it'll be December 30th probably when you see this, as the eclipse is occurring. But count back 72 hours from the eclipse, and then count forward 72 hours from the eclipse, and watch what's going on with him in this time period. We may already be seeing, I think we were already seeing the effects of this eclipse in the 72 hours prior to December 30th. So if that is the case, that is pretty interesting and very telling about what was the portent of things to come, and what that could all possibly mean. So there are a lot of people now, if you live in the US, that are questioning what on earth brought on this business with a $2,000 stimulus check increase from him, of all people. And there's still no explanation, not to mention the fact that he hasn't addressed the stimulus check, and he waited until the last minute, had to be pushed into signing it. The Nashville bombing, and he hasn't said a word about it. And the Russian hacking are significant government agencies, not a word about that. There's a whole lot of major stuff he's kept very quiet about, or just pretended doesn't exist, which means that it's either well out of his wheelhouse and abilities to handle, or he literally has no way to lie his way out of this, like he's, makes up stuff as he goes along with everything else. Hui. But this eclipse tomorrow, or that we are under right now, and will kick off again January 13th through 16th, this is no joke, and this is the big flag that's telling us like what's ahead. There's more to come, and this will finish it out. Now, so let's get back to this Mars trine that I started with. So with the Mars trine, it would seem like it's a good thing, right? And it could be, except here's the problem with his chart. This Mars trine, let me circle this for you. Let me use this one. Come here, darling. So the Mars trine occurring under this eclipse may very well show support and protection and added verve and vigor and fuel to his personal agendas. The problem is, one, it's going to be his personal agendas, and two, this looks like it's coming from foreign influences. So if he's getting any kind of boost or elevation or support, it's not coming from the people around him. This would be coming from foreign interests, wherever he's got foreign interests. So what little bit I know about politics, maybe you guys know more, this could easily be Russia, obviously, but it could also be Saudi Arabia or Israel. Remember, he's got some weird relationships with these countries. The other thing is that Mars is a sign. Mars is a planet of war. That Mars trine, especially with the Aries-Leo combination, could easily be beating the drums of war. So there may be interest, there may be significant interest by other countries in engaging or encouraging our leadership to make invitation or instigate conflict on foreign soil. Not theirs, of course. So that may be what that Mars trine is about. Let's hope not. Let's hope not, because at the end of the day, if we go to war, it won't be these senators' kids or his grandkids going to war. It will be our children, and that's not right. That is not right. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Okay. So that is the eclipse that we're looking at as it relates to Donald Trump. So I wanted to, so sorry. I wanted to give you guys a lot of information and really kind of get in here and do this thing and spend an hour, just pouring over charts. But I've got to get up at 5 a.m. and I got stuff to do, and I'm sorry. And I just can't give this man any more airtime than I can stand. So for those of you who are fans of Donald Trump, you're probably not on my channel. But if you are, it can happen if you are. Understand that your fearless leader has been under and continues to be under some serious fire from both friends and enemies. So people he thought he could count on, like literally the ground is disappearing from under his feet, and has been since, let me find it, since Pluto was at about 22 Capricorn. Over here. And right now, everything has officially reached critical mass. So, February 2020. So, he's not having a good time, and he's feeling really, really alone and isolated, and feeling like the unjust desserts of the world are being served to him exclusively for somebody else's entertainment, which could be true. All right, so Pluto was at, or has been, oh yeah, see, Pluto's been floating around 22 Capricorn since, most recently, here we go, since July, since this summer. So he's really been under siege since this summer. I mean, Pluto's been going back and forth, so he's been getting it, but this is the last pass of Pluto and Capricorn hitting that Venus and Saturn, and Pluto has moved past his Saturn, which really, relationships and things that are lost when Pluto and Saturn are opposed each other, whether it's people, relationships, status, money, heirlooms, anything, children, anything you lose under a Pluto-Saturn opposition with Pluto opposing your Saturn, these are permanent karmic losses. So not only are you paying a major karmic debt for this, you may be creating karma, depending on the reasons for the losses. So these are not happy times. And unfortunately, circumstances during those times do not play to your favor or your wins. So you get what you get and you deal with it, whether you like it or not. You don't get a choice in the matter, and there's no manipulating these things. There's just surviving it. And he's been dealing with this especially so since June or July of this summer, right? And now that same Pluto is moving into a tight exact aspect opposing his Venus. And Venus is your relationships and your heartstrings. Granted, his are tied up with Saturn, which makes him a very unsentimental, mercenary, quid pro quo, conditional love sort of person. He comes by it fair. I mean, this is how he grew up. Pluto will now be doing Pluto will be doing a painful reaming of that as it goes there. Now, also too interestingly, remember, Venus rules money because Venus rules our values, and money is valuable to us because it is an asset that we use to get things done. If we weren't using money as currency, we'd be using seashells or, goats and yaks and longboats. So Venus rules money only as money is an asset and a resource that we use to get things done. Venus rules a lot of things, but that's also one of them. Pluto opposing that Venus also means that there should be, because remember, Pluto breaks things wide open, right? So Pluto opposing that Venus could very much absolutely break wide open and expose like an X-ray everything that we've been not allowed to see up until this time, or anything that's been hidden or misrepresented until now. And if that is the case, there won't be any hiding or holding back there, because there won't be any choice in the matter. So there's going to be a lot of exposure, a lot of ripped open exposure at this time, and also could potentially be some significant losses. Now, the reason I say losses, and this won't be true for everybody, but remember, this is his specific chart. The reason I say losses for him is, remember, his Mercury, natal Mercury, which we believe is the chart ruler, is squaring his natal Neptune in the second house. So his whole identity, built on that Mercury-Neptune square, right, has all been about, let's see, what's going on here? Oh, wrong one. Has all been very much about the illusion, his illusion of wealth and unlimited resources, right? The illusions that he's built around his second house. So, and we know that, of all, he's not creating this and maintaining an illusion that he is a genius or a super athlete or a super lover. The biggest and greatest magic trick and illusion that he's given us is very much that he is wealthy, right? So let's look at that again. Okay, let me get rid of all this. So much stuff. All right. His natal Mercury squares Neptune, and Mercury is the chart ruler. So Mercury square Neptune, and Neptune's in that second house. The illusion that he's built his identity on has everything to do with second house matters, which is resources. Resources, which in this case is money. And what it also rules resources? Venus. And what is moving into a tight opposition with Venus? Pluto. The same Pluto that's been doing a number on him since June or July. I mean, all year long, certainly, but come this summer, this was the beginning of the end, as it were. So, doggy. So pay attention to these dates. December 30th, tomorrow, today, the eclipse, and a couple of days before the eclipse and a couple of days after. Because remember, 10 days before, 3 days after, we've got a big wide window when this eclipse is active. And for him, it's activating, sorry, not Saturn. It's activating his Mercury, or what we call his chart ruler, which is also square his Neptune. Now, what I would also look for with this particular eclipse, because Neptune rules his 7th house, if he's Virgo rising, is some form of exposure or betrayal from someone he considers a partner, or has been a partner to him. This is since he doesn't really have intimate emotional relationships, this has to be a business partner. So this can it's a transactional, contracted transactional relationship. So this could be anyone from Melania, the hired mail order bride, the sugar baby he married, to, and remember, we've got a lot of foreign influence here that's lending him support, to business partnerships he has with people overseas. And remember, we don't have a lot of information about anything he's doing with anybody overseas yet. I suspect that information is coming soon. Or it could be somebody that he saw as a working partner, like Michael Cohen was considered a partner of sorts. But Michael Cohen would more come in under his 6th house because he was still considered a servant, right? So Michael Cohen would be here. But the 7th house, these are business or contractual partnerships. And we don't know who they are because it's Neptune squaring his Mercury. He's not going to tell us, not voluntarily anyway. But that may come to light as a result of this eclipse as well. So, and this is going to be December 30th and also January 13th through 16th. So mark your calendars and let's see how this plays out, what comes up underneath this, right? And let's see. Oh, right. Yeah, so the 6th house, again, we said Michael Cohen was the 6th house, not the 7th, right? And he's got Uranus. Whether he's Leo rising or Virgo rising, he's going to have Aquarius on the 6th house. So the other thing is that those degrees are so close, right? So close on the edge that a lot of the other houses stay the same. The only thing that changes is whether something's intercepted or not. So with Virgo rising, his sun and moon are intercepted, which makes all kinds of sense, right? And let me show you what that looks like. With Leo rising, he does not have that interception. with the sun and moon. Now, you know, this sun, the two lights in a chart, sun and moon, in this case. So if you're a full moon person, you're already a little hyper responsive to things. You know who you are. In his particular case, I believe, I have to double check, but I believe he was also born under an eclipse, which is a very weird time to be born, because he almost didn't make it, right? So there's this, it gets into weird stuff about transference and walk-ins and soul exchanges, and I don't know, we don't have any to prove this stuff, but eclipses tend to open weird portals, so it's entirely possible that there's more, maybe he's not a human being. Anyway, but more than that, the eclipse on the sun, for a person's sun moon, right? And this being intercepted could mean that there's this unique ability to broadcast you're crazy, and people find it endearing or not believe that it's crazy. Like people, it reminds me of Ted Bundy, who was so charming and so manipulative and so projecting all the things people wanted to believe in terms of their perception bias. And if you're not sure who he is, go look him up. He's a fascinating character. But because of how he presented as this, you know, all-American boy, and because he was such a good liar and he was so manipulative, and he was so charming and charismatic, at least to some people, right? Literally, this man could tell you to your face that he was going to kill you, dismember you, and have sex with your skull, and you would laugh like he was joking and not believe him. And then of course he would do it. Yeah. That's the kind of weird stuff you get with interceptions and eclipse planets. So you can be whoever you are. People aren't going to see the crazy, or at least they won't see the crazy that well. So that may be a lot of what's going on with this. I'm not completely sure what that's about. We'll have to take more time to look into it when I'm feeling better about him and work through this. So that's what we got on tap. Now, for those of you who are not Donald Trump, who are taking this eclipse, here's what I would say. This particular eclipse, as we're looking at it, is actually pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. That's just, you know, more of the same. There's nothing new happening there. But with this particular eclipse, there is the opportunity to get some real breakthroughs and some lucky breaks. So if you're out there putting your nose to the grindstone, you're really making an effort, and you're really getting your hustle on in the right ways, this is going to be a grand time to keep knocking on those doors, and one of them is going to open, and it's going to be one that offers a lot more opportunity for stability and security in the future than you thought possible. So don't give up. This is the time, but don't think for a minute it's going to come easy. So hustle, baby, hustle. Okay? All right, so that's what we have for the December 30th eclipse. I'm not going to get too much more into this because I really got to go and get some more stuff done. And we still have all of next year to set up. And we'll be doing, probably about the middle of January, just before inauguration, we'll be doing a natal chart of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and their synastry chart. I'm not a huge fan of either of them because I think they're literally corporate hacks. Like Joe Biden is, you know, business as usual Biden, and Kamala the cop, right? Listen, compared to what we had to choose from, it's still better than the option. But I'm not in love with these two either. We could have had better choices. But, you know, you got to work with what's in front of you. All right, so that's it. If you guys have any comments or questions, please put them down below. Please remember to like, subscribe, share. I'm trying to get the channel up to 1,000 subscribers so that I can work less doing 4 jobs and spend more time doing this. Also, too, and that's without recruiting support from everybody out here. Also, too, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Listen, we're going to get through this. Wear your mask over your nose, please. And even after we get the vaccine, wear the mask over your nose. Because the vaccine is not 100% foolproof or effective. So, and it's not your health you're gambling with, it's everybody else's. All right. Oh, and if you like my mask, I will be selling on my Etsy shop, and I'll be selling handmade masks. and some of them you can eat and drink through. So that's coming. All right, you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.